It is day 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend.
Diddy's face turned pale as Cassie Ventura took the stand and exposed deeply disturbing claims. A music mogul, a kingmaker, once praised as hip-hop's greatest success story. But yesterday, that polished image shattered right before our eyes in the courtroom. Cassie, his ex-girlfriend, spoke of things so upsetting that even veteran reporters were stunned. The man who once ran an empire sat frozen, unable to hide what he felt. Cassie revealed it all. Every single thing she says happened behind closed doors. When she walked into that courtroom, everything changed in an instant, Rachel.
When she walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21. She was young. She didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
Cassie's testimony shocked the courtroom, revealing a side of Diddy the world had never seen. Combs walked through the music industry like he owned it, because in many ways, he did. He built Bad Boy Records from the ground up, turned artists into stars, and grew a brand that reached beyond music into fashion, vodka, and media. On paper, Diddy was the ultimate success. The man who proved hip-hop could be serious business. But that polished image, the one crafted so carefully, the business genius, the mentor, the music visionary, was hiding something far darker, if what's being said in court is true. While magazines praised his deals, fans cheered his shows, and the world saw that flawless red carpet smile. Cassie Ventura was reportedly living a completely different life. The contrast stunned everyone in the courtroom. Here was a man known for custom suits, perfect grooming, and saying all the right things, now facing claims that paint a much darker picture. According to the testimony, the person behind closed doors wasn't the Diddy fans thought they knew, and court reporters took note the moment he arrived. The man who built a billion-dollar empire, who controlled countless careers, suddenly looked powerless. Day 2. He walked in looking exactly like the billionaire mogul we all know. Sharp suit, calm face, flanked by a team of expensive lawyers. He nodded at people in the room, even gave a few smiles, like he was heading into a business meeting, not a courtroom facing serious claims from his ex-girlfriend. But that calm didn't last. Witnesses said Diddy's whole energy shifted within the first 30 minutes of Cassie's testimony. The swagger faded, the confidence vanished, and cracks began to show in his polished image. As Cassie started sharing detailed moments from their past, his legal team stood up again and again, urgently trying to block her words. It was a surreal scene. A man once in full control, now unable to stop what was coming. The man who always controlled the story was now facing one he couldn't edit or produce. Artists once followed his lead in major deals. Now he couldn't even control his own reactions. Witnesses said Diddy couldn't stay still as Cassie spoke. The power had clearly shifted. When she took the stand, all eyes turned to him. His face reportedly drained, like life had been pulled from it. He fidgeted nonstop, first his tie, then his cufflinks, then just his hands. Observers saw him scribbling notes frantically, passing them to his lawyers one after another. At one point, an attorney even raised a hand, trying to slow him down. A court reporter called it the moment Diddy realized he'd lost control of the story for the first time. Another witness said he looked physically sick as Cassie calmly talked about their past. A third person noticed him closing his eyes over and over, like he couldn't face what he was hearing. And this was only the start. Cassie's testimony would stretch into the afternoon. The courtroom would soon hear why Diddy couldn't hold it together. The claim she was about to make would send shockwaves through the entire music world. It threatened to destroy the legacy Diddy had spent his life building. And for once there was no spotlight, no studio, no way to spin it.
And at some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh, no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to take, she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table there.
When Cassie Ventura took the stand, the room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone expected this moment, but no one, not even Diddy's lawyers, was ready for what she'd say. After years of staying silent, holding these memories inside, Cassie finally had her moment to speak. And she did. She started with the beginning, which made it hit even harder. Cassie shared how she met Diddy at just 19. Young, hopeful, dreaming of a music career. He was already a big name, a millionaire with powerful ties all over the industry. From the start, the power gap between them was huge. And Cassie said Diddy used that to his advantage. Her words built slowly like a horror movie you can't stop watching even though you sense what's coming. She first spoke of small control tactics, how he allegedly needed to know where she was at all times, how he would suddenly show up if she was out with friends, watching her closely. Then came the career control. She claimed he'd threatened to block her music if she didn't listen to him. She said he even ruined her chances to work with others if he felt jealous or insecure. The most shocking part? Court records show Cassie said Diddy had tracking software on her phone. She testified that he sometimes called her just minutes after she arrived somewhere, already knowing her exact location. She claimed he slowly pushed away her close friends, anyone who might help her think about leaving, until she was alone. The look on Diddy's face, pure shock, as Cassie handed her phone to her attorney, changed everything. Her support system had allegedly vanished, leaving only Diddy in her world. The judge had to call for order 3 times during this part of her testimony. Diddy couldn't sit still, shaking his head, whispering loudly to his lawyers, making faces the jury could clearly see. Each time the judge warned him, he'd pull himself together for a few minutes, only to lose control again. It was like watching someone who'd never heard the word no finally realize he couldn't control what was happening. Then Cassie took the moment further, pulling out her phone and giving it to her lawyer. Suddenly, text messages and emails were projected onto a screen for the entire court. Diddy's face said it all. Stunned, as if he never imagined she'd kept them. Messages where he allegedly apologized for violent outbursts appeared in front of everyone. Messages where he reportedly threatened her career if she ever spoke up. Messages that completely clashed with what his PR team had told the world. The courtroom went completely silent as Cassie described being choked until she nearly passed out, more than once. For years, his team pushed a polished story to the public, but those texts were just the beginning. As she continued her testimony, Cassie started describing physical abuse that allegedly happened throughout their relationship. She talked about being slammed against walls during fights, each detail hitting harder than the last. One moment stood out. She claimed Diddy once pushed her down a flight of stairs at a Miami rental. But the most disturbing parts were the choking incidents, how he only stopped when she went completely limp. Several jurors visibly reacted. An older woman was seen wiping away tears. A male juror looked down, unable to face Diddy during the more graphic parts. Even the most experienced reporters there admitted they weren't ready for what they heard. The level of detail in Cassie's account left the courtroom in shock. And all of it, every moment, was building to something even worse. The hotel incident. The one that could change everything, was still to come. Cassie's relationship with Diddy had taken many dark turns, but that moment would blow the case wide open.
Cassie's relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So It's showing that she knew some of these people again because she was with him, around him for so long.
"I thought I was going to die that night," Cassie said, her voice barely a whisper as everyone in the courtroom leaned in. She was talking about something no one had ever heard before. Not the media, not the fans, not even the gossip sites. It was an incident at the Four Seasons Hotel that had been hidden for years. Cassie said she kept it secret because she was scared. Scared for her safety, her career, and that no one would believe her over someone as powerful as Diddy. But now, sitting on the witness stand, she wasn't holding anything back. According to her, what began as a regular music after-party turned into something terrifying. She said Diddy lost his temper after seeing her talk to another music executive. Cassie told the court how his smile vanished in an instant. She described how he grabbed her arm so tightly it left bruises, and how, in that moment, he leaned in and whispered threats into her ear. Diddy kept his calm in front of everyone at the event, but behind closed doors, things were very different. Cassie told the court he dragged her through the hotel lobby to the elevators, ignoring her tears and struggles. She made such a scene that hotel security came over, but when they saw Diddy, they stepped back. The guard only asked if everything was okay, and when Diddy said yes, he walked away without even checking on Cassie. Then came the photos. Cassie's lawyer showed pictures she took the morning after. They showed bruises on her arms, a split lip, and redness around her neck. These weren't professional photos, shaky and taken in a bathroom mirror, which made them feel even more real and raw. Cassie said she took the photos because she feared no one would believe her otherwise. Diddy's lawyers fought hard to keep the pictures from the jury. They said the photos weren't properly verified and could have been from anything. They also argued they should have been shared earlier in the case, but the judge rejected every claim, and the photos were shown on the courtroom screens for all to see. The jury's reaction said it all. One female juror covered her mouth in shock. Two men couldn't even look at the photos and turned their heads away. A juror in the back was seen writing fast, her hand shaking. This hotel incident was the shock no one expected. It hadn't been mentioned before in any statements or court papers. Diddy's team had no answer because they didn't see it coming. Everyone in the courtroom noticed the panic on his lawyers' faces. Cassie told how Diddy threw a champagne bottle at her head, missing by inches and smashing against the wall. She said he smashed the hotel room in anger, breaking a lamp, flipping a table, and punching a hole in the bathroom door. The worst part was when she said he stopped her from Lee. Diddy wouldn't let her leave the room for more than 48 hours, taking her phone and threatening her if she tried to call for help. As this part of the testimony ended, everyone in the courtroom turned to watch Diddy. His reaction would become the moment that defined the whole trial and maybe even his career.
I think what the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now. But I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself, as we saw today, she broke down in that courtroom.
No one in that courtroom will ever forget that moment. Diddy, the man who built an empire by staying calm under pressure, completely lost control right in front of everyone. His mask cracked, then broke, and what showed beneath wasn't pretty. Remember, this is a man who spent decades shaping his public image. The smooth-talking businessman, the calm mogul who never shows stress. But as Cassie's testimony hit its worst points, that carefully kept mask began to fall away. Court reporters who have covered hundreds of celebrity cases said they'd never seen anything like it. Diddy changed right before their eyes, from the confident industry leader who arrived that morning to a man who looked trapped and desperate. With every new claim Cassie made, he seemed to shrink deeper into his chair. His legal team grew tense as the afternoon dragged on. Diddy's team was working hard to keep him calm. Someone sitting right behind them said his main lawyer kept putting a hand on Diddy's arm to soothe him. At one point, a lawyer even passed him a note that said, "Stay calm," in big letters. But it didn't help. Things got so tense that Diddy slammed his hand on the table when Cassie told a story about his Hampton house. The sound echoed through the courtroom, and the judge quickly stopped the hearing, warning, "Mr. Coleman, if you can't control yourself, I will have you removed." For a moment it seemed like he might actually be kicked out of his own trial. Throughout Cassie's testimony, witnesses saw Diddy shaking his head and quietly saying, "That's not true," whenever she shared something damaging. It was like he forgot the jury was watching his every move. One observer said it looked like a man who had never been called out before, suddenly realizing he had lost control of the story. The power in that room shifted completely. Diddy had once controlled every part of Cassie's life, but now she was telling her side. And he couldn't stop her. He couldn't cut her mic, call security to remove her, or spin the story through his PR team. All he could do was sit there and listen. One mini. The real breaking point came when Cassie started talking about threats. She said Diddy had threatened her family if she ever spoke about what happened between them. Then came the shock no one expected. She had actual audio recordings of his voice making those threats. Her lawyer played the recordings in court, and that's when Diddy completely lost control. He jumped up from his chair and shouted at Cassie, "You know that's not how it happened." His lawyers rushed to grab him and pull him back down. It took 3 of them to hold him as he kept trying to talk over the recording playing in the courtroom. The judge quickly called for a break, but the damage was done. Everyone saw it. The jury, the reporters, the court staff. The man who built his image as untouchable just showed how very touchable he really was. As they led Diddy out for the recess, his strong image cracked right in front of everyone. One mini. He looked like a completely different person than the one who walked in that morning. The mask was gone, and what was underneath wasn't pretty. Just when everyone thought they'd heard it all, the real shock hit. Cassie had evidence no one expected. Not the judge, not the jury, and especially not Diddy. For years, she quietly collected proof of what she said happened during their relationship. Text messages, emails, photos, all saved in places where Diddy couldn't find or delete them. The courtroom fell silent when Cassie said she had texts from other celebrities who saw Diddy's behavior firsthand. These weren't just random people. Court papers showed they were some of Diddy's closest friends and business partners. People from his inner circle who had witnessed things at private parties and behind the scenes that no one else knew about. Diddy's face said it all. Someone in the courtroom said he looked physically sick when Cassie named these witnesses. His lawyers quickly stood up, shouting objections and asking for a private talk with the judge. They said the messages shouldn't be used as evidence, calling them hearsay and saying they weren't properly shared before. But the judge refused, after looking over the messages in private. He came back into the courtroom and rejected all objections, calling the messages very important to the case and letting them be used as evidence. That decision made Diddy put his head in his hands. He knew what was coming next. One by one, messages from famous people showed up on the courtroom screens. A top rapper had texted Cassie after a Grammy after-party saying, "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. You can stay at my place if you need to." A female pop star wrote, "I've known him for 15 years and never seen him act like that with anyone else. This isn't normal. Please call me." The most damaging messages came from a producer who had worked with Diddy for years. He texted Cassie after seeing an incident at a studio, "I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." These messages completely went against what Diddy had been saying, that no one ever saw bad behavior, and this was a private issue Cassie made up. Now the court saw people had seen these things, were worried, and had tried to help her. Then came Diddy's own texts. Screenshots showed him admitting to incidents. "I'm sorry about last night. You know how I get when I drink. It won't happen again." Another text said, "Whatever you need to make this right, just say it. New car, new apartment, whatever you want." A third series of messages looked like attempts to keep things quiet with money. "My lawyer can draw up the papers tomorrow. 2 million, clean break. You don't talk about..." As those messages were read out loud, something surprising happened in the courtroom gallery. Several people who came with Diddy that morning, members of his own team sitting right behind him, quietly stood up and left one by one. They couldn't stay and watch the evidence pile up against him. By the time this part of the testimony finished, Diddy was almost alone at his table, just him and his lawyers. The strong group that had been there to support him that morning had vanished. The proof nobody expected had changed everything. As day 2 ended, the man who walked in as the untouchable king of music looked defeated and broken. No security detail could protect him from what had just unfolded in that room. The empire he built over decades was falling apart right before everyone's eyes. Cassie Ventura didn't just tell her story. She might have rewritten Diddy's whole legacy. The evidence, the words, the recordings, they showed a side no one can ignore now. The real question isn't if Diddy can win this case anymore.